So my guest today is Eve Bednarska, who has graciously agreed to talk to us about her work with autism. Eve knows this subject from two different perspectives, in that she is an EFT practitioner, as well as having a child who has been diagnosed with that particular issue. So welcome, Eve.
Thank you so much, Tania, and welcome to everyone who's listening to this recording. And thank you for inviting me to share a little bit knowledge about autism as a mother of a child on autistic spectrum, and also as a therapist, as I work with children and adults on autistic spectrum. I do also do a lot of healing with the frequencies and microcurrents. And I spent many years learning about autism, ADHD, depression, anxiety, and sensory processing disorder. But previously, when I became a therapist, I spent over 20 years working in an office-based environment. So this is a little bit about my background.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Eve. And I know a lot of people come into the field of EFT because they have a passion, or there's something that very much motivates them and drives them. And I'm assuming that passion developed with the diagnosis of your child. Would I be right about that?
Yes, definitely. So the anxiety part of my child's autism has brought me to EFT, actually, because of many other things that I'm going to talk about later, and many difficulties. The anxiety is the one that is causing the most of pain, I would say, to himself and to the whole family. And so we try over the years to reduce that as much as possible, with a little effect. But when I actually came to the point of my personal breakdown, I felt like I couldn't deal with anything more. It was just too much. And I discovered EFT. The things start changing in such a beautiful way for him, for everyone, that I just think it's so important that we can share this with, other people and with therapists, so they can actually work with those on the autistic spectrum. My son had many challenges literally since the moment he was born, and they are very common, like sleep problems, speech delay, a limited diet, some difficulties with social communication and interaction, very rigid mind. Later on, there was problem with school attendance. So honestly, that was a full spectrum of things that we had to deal with. And so we tried the different paths. First, obviously, we tried to work more directly with the body, to see what kind of food he could not, he shouldn't eat. But you can also test that with muscle testing, if you are an experienced practitioner. But we've done it with bioresonance. So we're trying to change his diet and see what kind of minerals, vitamins he's lacking. We've used a lot of aids and timetables, so a lot of things I will be talking about later. But the anxiety was still there.
Yes. Well, the thing is, what you started with when you just telling me just now, is the main issue at the very beginning was the anxiety. So how did that come out in the family environment? What was happening there? I mean, because when you say anxiety, it's how perhaps your son was behaving, but also how you felt about that, how that was triggering perhaps you and the family, Mm-hmm.
Yes, I must say that for me, it was heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And my anxiety levels were really high, and I developed depression, and later on I've learned I also developed PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And in the moments of that so-called meltdowns or shutdowns, I literally dissociate, and I couldn't deal with it because I couldn't deal with my own emotions. I couldn't help my child. That was too much. So obviously, when I've changed, the way I feel, and I took control of my emotions, the things started to look very differently for him and for the whole family. So that was a very beautiful thing. And one of the best advice that I've heard is to concentrate on the strength of your child and celebrate all successes instead of focusing on what your child can do.
Yeah.
It's something really that help us.
You bring us a very, very important point, that our energy and what we have going on with us, it's a two-way thing, isn't it? If it blows us and we can't handle it, there's an impact the other way around, isn't it? You affect those around you. So I think grabbing a control over how you were feeling about that and giving yourself a totally different perspective, which is nice, isn't it? All right, what am I choosing to focus on? The issues that I see, or the good things, whether they're small, whether they're big. I have a choice here, and I love that little thing that you did there. All right, I can choose to focus on those good things, and even if they're little small little good things, and that's a very different energy with that, isn't it? You know, I remember, I've done a lot of research right across the board on many, many different things. But I remember a piece of research in a school where they went into school and these children were all failing, not doing very well at all. And they went in and they told the teacher, the teacher didn't know actually that they were in this particular place. And they said, and these are the best students we have. They're great. The teacher went in and really lifted them all up. And lo and behold, they become high achievers. And so I see how that would work there, Eve, with you. That total different emphasis. You're focusing on those good things and lifting up things around. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, I think you would see that yourself, isn't it?
Definitely, definitely. And it helps, it helped me to change my mindset,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Uh, Before I felt like a failure. I felt like, everything is wrong, it's only problems in my family, no one support, it was just this negative mindset.
Mm.
But when changing this and cultivating gratitude, it just starts something really beautiful and open up for, things like EFT and other, beautiful things.
Yeah, yeah. So very beautiful, the vibration with the emotion of gratitude, isn't there, really?
Yes.
Very, very stilling, I find. Just brings us back into balance in such a beautiful way. And of course, once you're around someone, you're sending those signals out, aren't you, really? You don't have to say that in words. It's a vibration, it's a feeling. But thank you for that. So yeah, it impacted you in that way and you grabbed control over your own emotion. Yeah. And like you say, your child had anxiety issues, and I think that's where you said EFT came into this. Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. But if you don't mind, could I share a little bit more about autism so people
Yes,
can
please.
understand,
Mm-hmm.
the difficulties they have on a daily basis? And I would like to start with something which one doctor said, that if you met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
Mm.
Okay. So the point is that those individuals diagnosed with autism present with very unique strengths and difficulties, and we should not assume anything,
Mm.
because I've met many, and they literally can have so many different attributes and difficulties that we can't just put them into the one bag. But autism is a lifelong developmental condition, and mostly affect how people communicate and interact. And they often have some difficulties in social communication,
Mm-hmm.
and they may struggle with understanding verbal or non-verbal language, like gesture or tone of voice. Some may have limited speech or not be able to speak at all. And I remember my son had very significant speech delay. So to the point that we have to learn sign language. But now, being 14, he can't stop talking. So, it's like, they're good things, and something that I focus on. I don't go back to, thinking
Mm-hmm.
about how it was. So, other thing, they take things very literally. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and, it's hard for them to grasp abstract ideas. So important thing for us to remember if we deal with them or have sessions, to remember that they need extra time for processing information or answer questions. Their brain work differently and they just need this extra time. Other thing they may struggle with is social interaction. So they may have difficulties with reading people's emotions or recognizing, understanding intentions, and very often in expressing their own emotions. So it can be very difficult, to navigate in the social world. Sometimes they may appear insensitive, or because they need to find some time alone, just to settle, to calm down. Sometimes people may think they behave strangely, because they may have limited filters. They may say things how they see it, without this filter on. So, word for them is very unpredictable and confusing place. So they very much rely on routines. Okay, so they may like to travel all the same way, or have the same clothes, or have the same breakfast every day. And when my son was younger, on the beginning, he really relied on the routine to the point that I had to repeat to him several times a day, what are we going to do every day of the week for the next 7 days?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I'm quite organized person now, and that was something that calmed him down. Okay, I know what's going to happen next. Okay, and that's important even when we have session with them. So what's going to happen next? So it's predictable, and then it would make them feel calm, and in control, if you may say that. Okay.
Yeah.
They may also do some kind of movements, like little children may do flap hands, or they may spin or some kind of things, and they only do that to calm themselves down. It's like calming behavior. So any change can be very distressful. And lastly, there is a lot of difficulty in sensory processing. And they may experience like over or under sensitivity to many things like sound, touch, taste, smell, light, color, and even pain. They may feel the pain, differently than us, or not feel it at all. So, for example, if they go to like very busy places like restaurants, and they play some kind of music in the background, you take no notice, but for them it could be unbearable. Even they may say that they feel physical pain. So if you think about this, going to school, to work, to shopping, it's a very sensory overloading experience for them. But obviously there can be many adjustments. And first thing is to obviously know what kind of sensory sensory input is overloading the system. And as well, we could think about it before we have someone in for the session, but I will be talking about this a little bit later. And they may have very focused interest, and maybe very very focused, and literally like become the best expert of something that they're interested in. But coming back to the thing that we started about, anxiety is a very, very common thing. And there are some estimate that at least 50%, if not 80%, struggled with anxiety or other mental problems, which, if you think about it, we have 700,000 adult and children in UK, are diagnosed with autism. So that's a big number of people.
Yes, absolutely.
It's support, So it's very important for them, so they recognize the triggers and the mechanism and techniques to help them reduce this anxiety. Okay. So maybe now we could talk a little bit about the correlation between autism, EFT, and amygdala.
Well, lovely. I'll go there in a second, Eve. Yeah, because you give some great stuff out, and I think a key point of what I picked up from that. I mean, it is a spectrum. Yeah, as in there's not one distinct thing of autism. There are many, many, many different things, and are different ways people present with that problem. And what you very, very beautifully said is you got to treat each person individually. Yeah, you got to see what's happening for them and understand it from that perspective. I think another point is you said about the movement. Yeah, now people can interpret that in many different ways, because if they don't know what's going on for that person, they see a movement, they might think, "What? What's that about?" But it's calming. It's a way these people have found that calms their system down. And I think it's having that perspective as a therapist, that you're not judging it on maybe other people. You're realizing there is some benefit to what they're doing.
Yes.
Try and get themselves into a better place. I was reading this stuff about the hearing and stuff like that, and I believe some people who've got autism sometimes cover their ears, and you might think, "Oh my God, how ignorant is that? They don't want to listen." Maybe not. Trying to block out the sound. Because you go into certain places and it's overwhelming for people because their hearing is picking up in a different way. And so therefore, as anyone would do, they found a way to try and handle the situation. And I think it is about understanding. I think if you're going to work with people who've got this kind of diagnosis, you need to treat them individually, but you need to know and understand and not judge what they do from that perspective. You think, all right, what's the positive purpose of this behavior? And that's what you're literally saying there. Am I right, or am I?
Yes, definitely. Yes, you summarize it really nicely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And so, you've got to have that perspective when people come in who've got that, and we want to work in a positive, good way with that person. And now you said you wanted to kind of talk about a little bit of the science, EFT, the amygdala, and I suppose the work you've done with EFT with people who've been diagnosed with this issue. Mm-hmm.
So, as majority of us know that the effect, EFT has on amygdala, which is commonly known as like a threat detector. So it helps us to handle our emotion and process fear and so on, so on. But as much as we have so much studies in the EFT field, to prove the effect on it. There is so much research how this part of the brain has an effect on autism. It shows, with many studies shows that in some individuals there has been either overgrown in amygdala or undergrown. So the responses, that the connection is very strong. They still not really know, what is the cause of it, but definitely there is a big correlation between those. So, well, when I realized that, and I had this information passed to me a long time ago on the training at the Reading University, I felt like, oh my goodness, this is something unbelievable. We can, teach them how to do EFT to help them calm this response, because, from my observation, they nearly constantly in this fight or flight response. They constantly anxious because, everything is unexpected. Well, perhaps if they in a safe environment of their home or, somewhere that they feel safe, that's okay. They know what to predict, but going out, it's an unknown.
Mm.
So helping them to reduce this arousal, to teach them techniques. We can obviously do many things, even if we're outside, like, tapping on the fingers. Okay, we can press the gamut point. We can do a lot of things to help them, even before or between sessions. So, and there is an emerging new research about the vagus nerve, the impact, how stimulating the vagus nerve can help autistic people to regulate their emotions and their inner states. So I thought that's very, very interesting.
I do think, definitely EFT is a very powerful technique for, well, just in case people are not familiar with it, it's called emotional freedom technique. It's a form of tapping on acupoints, or even just touching and breathing when you go to these acupoints, and it brings the body back into balance. It's a very, very powerful technique for doing that. So you're supporting the body's natural healing mechanisms, which is very, very beautiful. So what you're saying there is it's about putting a person back in control, so they have the tools to begin to help themselves. And I think that goes right across therapy in general. You're always looking, because you don't want that they've got to have other people to help them. It's about, what can I do for me? I'm feeling in control, because what you're saying there, you're saying about certain patterns of behavior, like with your son, he needs to know what's happening for the next 7 days, because that gives him some comfort and he feels more in control. Yeah. And what you're saying here is, we teach them EFT, which is how to manage the emotion and how to bring it back into balance. Then again, that's putting them in control, because once you go out, you can control possibly your environment in your home, but not so well if you've got a few kids, like. But you can do your best then. But you go outside, you can't control a lot of different things. So many different stimuluses, so many different things coming into that. So really, it's an essential tool at that point in time. And you speak about the brain and how EFT has had some beautiful research done on it, which supports the idea it can be very calming to the whole system. And then the vagus nerve, again, very, very powerful, bringing that back into balance, because it controls everything, doesn't it? It controls, it's part of the autonomic nervous system. So it controls our automatic behavior, and it's a key kind of branch of the autonomic nervous system that deals with calming the body. At least part of it does. Yeah. But yeah, so I think it's fascinating that. So, with that being said, have you found you have to use any unique ways of applying EFT, Eve, or just the standard way? Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are some adjustments that I've been using, and I'm happy to share that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tend to have a kind of a communication firstly with the parent or the carer of the person,
Mm-hmm.
if it's a younger person or someone that is referred to. And I tell you why, because like we mentioned that they're very sensitive to everything. We could say they are like super powerful emotion detectors to any emotions that we may feel. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So like I mentioned about myself before, if I, as a parent or a carer, I'm not in control of my emotions and I feel anxious, they will really detect it. They will take it on, and maybe it can even aggravate how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, and I know that from my experience that I totally neglected myself. It did, and doing everything for my son, like giving him 100% of me didn't really help. Actually, it was the opposite effect.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm approached by a parent or carer, I tend to ask them that we have at least 2 sessions with them first to work on their emotions, to help them, to care about themselves, to care about their well-being, so they could help their children better way. So they are in a calm state to respond to situation like meltdowns, when the child it's in such a state that it doesn't take notice of anything what's going on. And really, if you feel calm, this energy will go towards you. So I'm not saying it will calm your child as just being you very calm and happy, obviously not, but you can think logically, and you can lower the arousal. So this is something very important. And the parents always says, no, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I have no time. I have to do this for my child because he needed so badly. and I'm exhausted, all these things, excuses, because they just so focus on the child. But it's very important to remind them that when we go on a plane, what do they say? Put the mask with the oxygen on you first, and then
Yes.
you can help the child.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to reflect that. And coming back to your questions, yes, there is a lot of things that we can do to help this individual to have as much benefit and feel as much comfortable as possible. So just reminding that, to remember that not two individuals with autism are the same. So do not assume anything when they come to your session. Okay. And it's very, very good practice to, before the sessions, to send them some photos of the room, or maybe the entrance, the building, and obviously of yourself. So they already familiar, they know what they expect. You can, show them, where is the toilet, or you can send like a very short agenda, what we're going to do, and how long will be the session, and to remember to stick to certain days and time, because they will rely on that. That on Monday at 5, I have the session time. It's my time. I can, I feel confident about it, I feel safe. Okay. It's good to have some kind of a questionnaire asking about their sensory needs, because that would have an impact during the session. So if they're sensitive to bright light, make sure their room, is calm, and any smells. Sometimes I use aromatherapy, so I to make sure that the person's not sensitive, oversensitive to that. But anything that you can ask before, anything that they can share, and let them know that they are an expert on how the autism affect them. Okay, so they will let you know if they need a break, or they need more time, or something is not like the way that they prefer. So it's very important to do that. I've noticed that some individual, including my son, they like to avoid some tapping points.
Mm-hmm.
For example, my son doesn't like any tapping around the eyes. So, I don't, obviously, but he loves the timers point. He loves it. A lot of children,
Which
timers,
point? Which one?
timers.
The thymus on the chest, yeah, which is
Yes,
not necessarily a part of the standard EFT
exactly.
protocol, yeah. But that particular point, your son loves that one, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And I tend to add the wrist point as well, which is not
Yeah.
a standard procedure, but they link to, reducing anxiety. So, if, for example, we have to drop some of the points, it's good to
Mhm.
add others. But, this is just my personal experience to do. And the most wonderful thing that we could teach parents, for example, is how to do surrogate tapping, or even, have that session with them. Because very often children will be in such a state that they won't be able to,
Yeah.
engage in tapping. Okay. And in the moments when they need it most. So surrogate tapping is just beautiful way. And I had so many examples with my son.
Yeah, I'll pull it back a little
Yes,
because not everyone may understand the
of
term
course.
surrogate tapping, but surrogate tapping is where you tap on you for someone else to gain the benefit. And as you very beautifully said there, if a person goes into a big emotional thing, often the last thing they're thinking about is, I'm going to tap on this. What they often do is they stop, don't they? They're just in their emotional moment. But what you're saying is, but you as the parent or even the therapist within the
Yes.
clinic have uh, a tool that you can use. You can tap on you for them. And the thing is, our energy system, as they do say, we're all connected, and intention is powerful, isn't it? But yeah, it's a common thing that we do in EFT. We tap on us for other people, and there's been some phenomenal results with that. So you're saying here it's a really good idea to use this in this circumstance. Now, the question would be, would your child need to know, or the person need to know that you're doing it for them, or could you do it in a private room?
Well, so I've done a lot of research in that matter, and thinking that, if your intention, the pure and best, the same like if you would like to give someone a birthday present, would you ask them? No, you just give it. So you want to give them, I'm not asking permission. This is my personal thing, because I want this person to be in a calm and positive state.
Yeah.
So I would not ask the permission. But I had a beautiful experience with my son that within 10 minutes of him being on the floor, crying and shouting, he started laughing. It's just unbelievable and beautiful. Seeing that, you would not believe, and I wish I could record it.
Well, pull it back before before you started using EFT in that context. Had that ever happened before? No.
It would take us a very long time, sometimes a half a day, a whole day, to help him to settle down, to be on track again. And for myself, sometimes longer, because I felt, awful, just, dissociated and really upset that I couldn't help him.
Well, that's the other point you're making. The moment you start, say as a parent or the therapist tapping on you for the other person, you're empowering yourself because you're taking action. Yeah. And that comes back into you now have a level of control over that situation. And because in EFT, we deal with emotional things left, right, and center. And this really is just one of them cases where you do that, but you're tapping on you. So the person who's doing the tapping on themselves, they're gaining benefit from that because immediately it feels like I've got something I can do that can help the situation. So they come out of a powerless place into a little bit of an empowered state. But what you're saying is, I've seen the results of this. 10 minutes and my child has started laughing, would never happen before. Yeah. So I suppose it's the great experiment for anyone who might not believe in that. You got to do it. You got to, in a way, stay in balance. I think you can't be an absolute rat tapping away yourself. Get yourself in balance and go for it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really beautiful, and I love what you said, that just give it a try, just experiment and see the effect. You will be amazed. I can promise you. The other very common thing I've noticed, there is a lot of resistance, okay, when working with individuals on autistic spectrum. I've noticed that in most cases is because it doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel safe because it will be, I let it go. I need to stick to this because that will, protect me. So you have to make sure that you incorporate some tapping, on the resistant subject itself, to help it reduce, that intensity.
And so are you talking about on the surrogate tapping side, when you're doing the surrogate tapping, you incorporate words to deal with resistance? Is that what you're saying there?
As well as surrogate tapping and, during the session with the individual as well.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So in a way, you're acknowledging where they are emotionally at that point in time. So even though I don't, or whatever wording comes to mind with that, and yes, and like you say, it's related to safety and them in a way staying within their comfort zone, and EFTs allowing them to have a little bit of a different experience there. But with that being said, so what you're saying is surrogate tapping is an essential thing, and
definitely
EFT itself can be a valuable tool for anyone who's having these issues. Yeah. And what else would you like to say, Eve, with that?
Well, I like to use some visuals, because they have very rigid mind, and using metaphors is not always the best thing to do with individuals on autistic spectrum. So literally just use, for children, something simple like, just showing the emotion in faces, or, showing color to choose, not asking that as a metaphor, as just, just literally, and using pure language. So, we do not try to, I've forgotten the word, so, but, just use pure language to deal with that. And one more thing which I've researched as well, would like to share. So like we discussed the importance on the vagus nerve, when we do the breathing between, the tapping runs, it's very useful if we teach them to make this humming noise when breathing out. Like, it helps in the same time to stimulate the vagus nerve. So this is something that, we can just incorporate in addition. But I had a situation with my son who was having one surgery which wasn't successful. And so we had an appointment with the consultant, and he was extremely, extremely stressed, thinking that, I need another surgery. So all the previous visits with the consultant, he didn't say a word. He was so stressed, he hid behind me, never say, never answer. And then when we started applying EFT, we had this, consultation about whether he needs another surgery. So we've been practicing tapping, and I taught him how to apply tapping on the finger points. So I said, when we sit in the waiting rooms with many people, just do tapping, and he loves the timer's point. So we're going into this to the surgery, room, and first of all, he smiles to the consultant. And they're starting to have this awesome conversation about something that, a game he was interested in. And he answered all the questions, he's so engaging. And the consultant look at his nose, and it's like, is that the same child? So I explained that, he was doing EFT, emotional freedom technique, to help him to, calm himself. And you just absolutely amazed. He just could not believe, because he's been seeing my child for like past 5 years, never had a conversation with him. And then you can see the effect of EFT, how help this child, it's just amazing.
And doesn't that absolutely show that that is what he has within him, that capability, that he has that ability to hold this fantastic conversation, and it's all about safety, for him. And if he can get himself feeling safe, that's the him that he shows to the world, isn't it, really? That's actually brought a tear to my eye. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
It shows it's within him. The EFT never created that. It allowed him to be what he truly is, that aspect of himself, in a very beautiful way. And thank you for sharing that. And I'm guessing that if that was how your son presented himself all the time, he would never get that diagnosis as well, would he?
Yes. Definitely.
Because a diagnosis is based on symptoms, and if you ain't got the symptoms, you're not going to get that diagnosis. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much. Yes, but there are so many undiagnosed people or adults who they think I might have it, and they struggle, and I just feel like I wish everyone could learn, EFT, every person, but specifically those on autistic spectrum, because they need it like 24 hours a day. They need to know these calming techniques. They need to, feel safe so they can blossom, like you said, beautiful, to show who they truly are inside.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just like I said, when your son did that, and he got himself in that safe state, in a way, he is. He's just there. He's present. He's going for it. How beautiful, Was there anything else you felt was important to bring out here, Eve?
Looking at my notes, I think that's all that I would like to share.
All right. So, so if I just summarize a little bit, what you said is each person who has been put on the spectrum, they're unique individuals who will present in different ways, and what you have to do is whatever you do and work with that particular person, you have to tailor what you're doing to fit that person. Yeah. You have to keep them in control. Yeah. Even so much, get your camera out, take the pictures of your clinic, take pictures of you, kind of let the person know what they're likely to experience there, give them an agenda, so there's a level of control they have about that. Nothing is coming as a shock to them.
Yes.
So all right, this is what's going to happen. So you're putting them in control, in control, in control. You're teaching them techniques that they can again use in certain situations to keep them in control. And you've modified the approach, yeah, to use the particular points that they find with you, not for saying, well, you've got to do it here because that's in the standard here. No, it's all right. That doesn't work for you. Let's find a way that does. So you brought in the thymus point on the chest, which he loves. You bring it in the wrist points, which is generally what we class as an optional point in EFT, but it's brilliant in certain circumstances. And, you know, it's a lovely point. You can do it in so many different ways. And then you brought the finger points in, yeah. And which was, of course, in the original, more classical version of EFT, but it's a brilliant thing. You can walk down a road doing this. I think Steve Wells has got it in simple energy techniques, you know, where they do a lot of just simple tapping and just type of toning your system. So you're giving techniques, you're putting in control, and you're working with the parents as well, because you can never discount the parents. You know, how they respond in any situation has a knock-on effect. And like you say, when they say, I ain't got time for that. The interesting thing is, usually when you use EFT and you work on that aspect, you find you have a lot more time than you think.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're very stressed, you're very ineffective at what you do. Yeah, things don't go smoothly. You do all things wrong, and all goes to pot a bit. But if you come back into a place of balance and calmness, whatever you do is going to be much easier to do. You know, so I suppose that is about just giving that information. You deal with this for you, and you'll have a much bigger impact on this situation with your child. So I see the importance and relevance of that. And also because they're going to have to support what you do with the child. Yeah, because they're going to be in the environment. So I think I summed up most of that.
Yes, yes, very nicely. Thank you, Tania.
But yeah, so how Eve, let me get that right again. Eve, how can people contact you? Mm-hmm.
So if you would like to see, how I work and what modalities I use as well, you can visit my website, which is www.smilewitheve.com, and then you can find all the information there. Thank you.
So I'll do the website again, which is www.smilewitheve.com.
Yes.
All right. I'll put it across the screen so people can see it as well. So they want to come and ask you questions, or even if they want to work with you, whatever. And can I say thank you very much for bringing your personal insight and how you've taken your personal experiences in this world and kind of turned it in such a beautiful way that you bring beauty to the world and help others. You know, thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much, Tania. It was a privilege to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.